All right, rock and roll, hoochie coo. Welcome to another edition of Off Topic, our fantastic, world-renowned sports show where we always go off topic. So we got 3 segments coming at you. We're going to go Cowboys coaching, NFL preview, and of course, we will eulogize, the late, great, incomparable Bob Uecker. But first, for this segment, because there's 3 coming up, follow on YouTube, like and subscribe. We're going to talk the debacle that is the Dallas Cowboys and their coaching search. So, you take it off the top with Mike McCarthy and how poorly they handled this situation.
Well, I think Mike McCarthy came in there and he was a great hire for the Cowboys. I think everybody really liked the idea of him working with Dak. He worked with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Great coach, right? Very good coach. The problem was the Dallas Cowboys just could not all stay on the field at the same time. Questionable decisions in the drafting process. Jerry Jones likes to get his fingers in there, and that makes things very, very difficult. So Mike McCarthy, this year everybody saw him as a lame duck coach.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if he won, didn't matter if he lost. He was done at the end of this year. His contract was up. They didn't even have to fire him.
No.
It was just after game 18 he was done. So now we brings us to the offseason where the Cowboys have to have a head coach. And Jerry Jones has said, don't worry, I'll be very involved in the process. As every fan says, keep Jerry out of it.
Yeah, it's impossible to keep him out of it because he owns the team.
He does.
And he's the GM.
His son, Steven, has shown that he's a very, very smart football guy. That I think, if Dad was to step aside a bit and give Steven a bit more reins, I think the Cowboys could come back to prominence.
They could. They very easily could. This reminds me of the old Chicago Blackhawks under Rocky Wirtz.
Yeah.
Or Bill Wirtz.
Yeah.
He was just a horrible owner and an awful human being. And then he died, almost thank God. And then his son Rocky took over and started doing things correctly.
Yeah.
So here's the problem with the Dallas Cowboys, coach aside.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm watching the Thanksgiving Day games, and the Dallas Cowboys are playing the not-so-juggernaut New York Giants, who, if you can't beat the Giants, you're probably the Tennessee Titans. Okay? So sure enough, they play the game, Dallas wins, and they cut to Jerry sitting on a swivel chair up in his booth there, what do they call, luxury box, and all his yes men around him are shaking his hand and patting him on the back like he just won the Super Bowl. That's the problem with the Dallas Cowboys, right? Who the hell cares when you're losing, when you win a game against the New York Giants? Of course you're going to win against the New York Giants. They absolutely suck. So now they need to know who head coach, right? And this is a bit like bringing a new captain into the Titanic as it's hit the iceberg, and hey, keep us afloat, and handing the guy 4 buckets to bail out the gunnels.
True, not true. Okay. True, not true. So, in the 90s, Jerry Jones firmly inserted himself into team decisions because they weren't doing well.
No.
Got lightning in a barrel and won a bunch of Super Bowls.
With, who was this coach? Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did Jimmy Johnson...
Switzer won a couple.
Hang on. What did Jimmy Johnson do?
What did he do?
He stood up to Jerry Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, okay. Yes,
right?
He did.
He was a guy with a set of balls who could stand up to his boss. Okay?
Granted.
Right?
But the decisions that he made, the Troy Aikmans, the Emmitt Smiths, the players that he brought in really put some life into the team.
Of course they did.
Made them contenders, Super Bowl champions. Right. Barry Switzer came in after Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? And he continued on winning.
Not...
Switzer won
a Super Bowl.
But it was still Jimmy's team. Yeah.
They didn't so much as win that Super Bowl, is that Pittsburgh lost it. Okay? Because Pittsburgh, it was a close game, and was it O'Donnell was their quarterback at the time?
Yeah.
Threw 2 interceptions, and the quarterback or free safety, whoever made the 2 interceptions, got MVP.
Yeah.
They barely won that game, right?
But they did, and they were playoff contenders for the rest of the 90s into the 2000s.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is that Jerry keeps trying to make decisions that he made back then now to catch that lightning in a bottle again. And he hasn't stopped to say, wait, I need to rebuild this thing. Tony Romo looked really good. Tony Romo was running. The Dallas Cowboys were going to win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo. Tony Romo gets hurt. No plan B, right? Dak Prescott over the years here. Dak Prescott looks good. Dak Prescott's running. Dak Prescott's going to win a Super Bowl.
They had a good offense last year. I'll give them that much.
They've had great offense for lots of years. You don't, if you're playing fantasy football, you don't mind taking Cowboys because they're going to get you points.
That's true. They have good offense, but what wins you a championship?
You know, what defense wins you championship. But see, then they put a bunch of time into the defense.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the injuries that have killed them because they bring out these players and they put it on these players that you've got to step up and win this game. Right? So you get the Tony Romos and the Dak Prescotts that are like, I got to make something happen here, puts themselves in a vulnerable position and gets hurt.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you look at the smart quarterbacks are protecting themselves because they know there's another play coming.
Yeah.
They don't have to win it on this play. And I think that became a real problem. McCarthy couldn't keep them in line. It was like he lost the locker room at the end of last year, and then they brought him back this year, and everybody was like, really?
Yeah.
You know? So now he's done.
Okay.
And we're moving forward, and we've got the big talk right now is the candidates. Now, the number one that's being said out there is Neon Deion Sanders coming to save the Cowboys.
Okay.
So
let's look at Deion Sanders, not as the celebrity, because that's people get caught up in celebrity a lot. Let's look at him as a coach.
yes.
Now, I like Neon Deion.
Oh, I like
I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, lovely
The guy was a superb athlete. He was an amazing competitor. He played two sports, did very well in both. And he played against those Jays in 1992 with the Atlanta Braves. He hit 620.
Yeah.
And they lost, but that guy showed up when it mattered. Same
Yep.
thing when he played pro. So now he's a coach. He goes to Jacksonville State. He takes a Jacksonville State team that was just in the dumper, brings in his two sons, brings in a new culture. They start winning. Okay? So he gets a winning record, jumps to Colorado with the Buffs.
Yep.
Dead, dormant team that no one ever talks about. We're all talking about them now. Love or hate, we're all talking about them. But when you look at his record, his best season so far was 9-3.
Yeah.
And honest to God, that's not very good. And they went into a bowl game, and his kid Shiloh gets an interception and does his victory dance, and they're down 17 points. And what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I'm Dallas and I want to get a college player, I'm looking at, what's his name, Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, or I'm going across the other side of the field from the guy from either Penn State or Ohio. If I want to bring a college coach in, quite frankly, because they're the ones game ready for the playoffs, right?
Agree with you. I do agree with you. Now, the thing that Dion has had success with is getting his message across, getting the players to buy into his team.
The players love him.
Now, people are saying Dion seems to be the best option here, right? But Dion doesn't even think so. Dion likes working with the college level. And he was quoted just back in November that he ain't going anywhere. He likes where he is.
People say that a lot.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. The money, you know. I don't think Dion's the right fit for the Cowboys.
No.
So, I mean, they've got a list here of who could be the best. And, I mean, right away you bring up Neon Deion.
Yeah,
right?
that's what everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
And, he's the best person for the... He's not. He's good. He's a good coach. But until you get into, an actual real bowl game, like moving on and top 12 college football playoff, then I don't think you could really make that choice. I mean, Urban Meyer, let's look at it this way. Was it 3 national championships?
Yeah.
Who was his first team? Or was it Florida? Was it Ohio? Or was it
Sooners?
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
So he won it with Oklahoma, went into the pressure cooker of the Gators with, everyone just coming down on him, won 2 there.
Yeah.
And then went to Tennessee, which is, of course, a sinking ship at the time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, of course, he lasted 1 season and they got rid of him, which is just
He lasted the whole season.
It was completely dumb. I mean, it takes ages to rebuild. Even Jimmy Johnson, when he took over those Dallas Cowboys, it took him several seasons to rebuild.
Yeah, but it was things... Urban Meyers did and said things that ostracized him in Tennessee right away. Yeah. And it didn't get better, and they had to part ways.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really his coaching or building the program. It was character personality problem.
That's fair.
So, so that became a bit of an issue there. But it's funny because like here I've got this list here, and it says candidate top of the list Deion Sanders.
Right.
But it says no formal interview is scheduled. They've had an initial conversation, but Sanders followed it up with his commitment to stay put in Boulder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could have more twists and turns to come. You never know, right?
Yeah.
The candidate that I think is going to end up there is Kellen Moore.
Okay, help me out. Who's Kellen Moore?
Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator. He worked with the Cowboys for years, and he was the offensive coordinator. And before that, when they brought Mike McCarthy in, everybody thought Kellen Moore was going to step up into the head coach position.
Okay.
Right? And
So he's with them now?
no, he's with Philadelphia now.
Uh-huh.
When they brought in McCarthy, he bolted from Dallas.
Gotcha.
He actually went over and was the Chargers offensive coordinator for a year. Right, and did not survive the Staley firing and all that.
Yeah.
And ended up over in Philadelphia, and he's been the offensive coordinator there.
Right.
And he's been worked wonders with Barkley and Hurts and the group there. They're in the Super Bowl conversation.
Very much so.
They're playing very well right now. Right. I think that's going to be it, because the Cowboys like going back to people that they've had before.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's part of the reason Dion's in there, because Dion played for them and he knows Jerry Jones and get along with Jerry Jones and all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty normal.
Yes.
I want to bring someone here who understands our culture and who we are, right? So yeah.
And so the thoughts are that he's a good offensive mind. He worked well with the Cowboys when he was there. He did great things with the Chargers, even though the Chargers didn't do great things.
Yeah.
And he's been really good in Philadelphia. And he was a heir apparent. I'm trying to remember the coach that was there before McCarthy.
He's an NFL analyst now, the redhead guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He
was pretty
very
good.
Forgettable. Very forgettable.
He wasn't terrible, but whatever.
But when he left, everybody thought Kellen Moore was going to move up into the head coach role.
Right.
And Jerry Jones was able to bring in McCarthy. And I think the thought was that McCarthy would mentor him for a couple of years, but Moore bolted for something else. He was pissed off. Yeah. So now he's coming back, and now he wants to come back. He says he's focused on the preseason with Philadelphia. He's going to worry about it after this season's over, right?
Copy that.
And then you got a couple more in here that they're talking to. One's Robert Saleh, and he was the head coach of the Jets. He was a very, very good. He was a heralded defensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Now he's back to that.
No, he went to the Jets. He got fired from the Jets this year.
Yeah, no, but he's back with San Francisco now.
No, free agent.
I thought he signed with San Francisco.
No, free agent. No,
okay.
He was with the Jets this year.
Yeah, I know that.
And they fired him. Yeah, and he may be over there as just working with them, but their season's over too.
Yeah.
So he's done, right? So I mean, he was a good head coach. He did good things in New York.
Yeah. That's another mess, right?
It's a train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and he did. I mean, people dump on Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
But him and Zach Wilson had a better season than whoever it is with Aaron Rodgers this season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like his numbers weren't that terrible.
No.
Right?
No.
So, yeah.
Zach Wilson is like a Sam Darnold part two.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's the Jets that did it to both of them.
I know.
I know. And so the last one that they got here as a candidate is Leslie Frazier. And they worked with the Vikings. We worked with Mike Zimmer, the Cowboys core. Zimmer's with Minnesota, I do believe.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very good defensive minds, and I think that's what they're thinking. McCarthy's was more of an offensive guy. The guy before him was more of an offensive guy. They need somebody that's a defensive minded, build it from the defense out.
Right.
And I think they're right there. Now, my pick here is going to be Kellen Moore.
Sure.
I think the Deion Sanders, the talk about that, the Cowboys being a big market, big name, and Deion Sanders, and trying to put the two of them together is just clickbait.
It is.
I think if the Cowboys are smart, they go with the Kellen Moore on a 5-year contract with a 5-year rebuild.
And as a plan. And you sit down with Jerry Jones and say, look, this is our plan. For the love of God, let me make the decisions.
Yeah.
And you have to stand up to your boss. You got to do it. That's the only way you're going to win.
Well,
and Jimmy Johnson did that, and Jerry Jones ran him out of town. Now, Jimmy Johnson's ego was just as big as, and he did some stuff to his boss that was not cool. Not cool.
When you look at the Dak Prescott situation, they've given him a big contract. He's stuck there. They're stuck with him for a while because nobody else is going to want him. They got to start thinking life after Dak. Yeah. And I think, if they can trade him off, get him off to one of these other teams that need a quarterback.
Because he's good. He's a good quarterback. But, I mean, it gets to a point where it's no matter what you do,
he's got to be
you just don't win. And he got injured, right?
A lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be, I think, the first thing that they got to address is how they're going to where they want to go with the offense. They're an offense without an identity.
Yeah.
They got some really good receivers there. They've got a great tight ends. They got a good O-line. They need an identity of are you going to be a throwing team or a running team or a quarterback scramble team, and get the proper pieces in play.
All right. And Shedeur Sanders is not in.
Yeah.
And,
so for them to throw away the draft to get Shedeur to draw Dion over there because Dion's always coached his kid.
It'd be crazy.
I don't see it not happening because that's something crazy that the Cowboys could do. But I think it's just more.
Shedeur Sanders is.
Yeah.
He's overrated. He's not as good as everyone as he thinks he is.
So
he's not that good.
Right now, there's a few openings for head coach.
Yeah.
And
there's a few the Patriots went and got Vrabel.
Yeah.
Which is a really good one. But again, it's more than a coach. They need sort of everything. So, and a lot of it comes down to the draft and just culture and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
What's Mike Tomlin going to do?
Well, they're going to keep him.
Even Kyle Shanahan. There's talking Kyle Shanahan. He's you reach a point.
Right now, the Cowboys need a coach. They don't have one, so they need Kellen Moore. The Jets don't have a coach. They're looking at the thoughts are that they're going to go back to Rex Ryan, right? And as crazy as it is, he is a good stabilizing force for them. He had them going in the right direction. Once again, stuff outside of football, it caused him to not be there anymore, right?
So they had to grow up a bit.
And he has. It really seems that he has. You watch him, he's one of the announcers now.
With his spray on tan and his spray on teeth.
Now, this one's an interesting one. Ben Johnson's the offensive coordinator for the Lions. He's done a great job in the Lions. They think he's going to the Raiders, right? And the nice thing about the Raiders is they got lots of draft picks, low draft picks. They're essentially a blank canvas. So Johnson could come in and build that team. And with Brady there now, and him and Ben Johnson are friends. Ben Johnson was his OC in New England for a long time, right? So they've got a lot of they work well together.
And now who's the owner of think of a doodle? Mark Davis?
Mark Davis, yeah.
Okay, so the guy's crazy, right?
His dad was crazy.
Yeah, he's pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's a little crazy himself, but he knows that he doesn't know football. Right, so Al Davis was the Raiders owner for years,
decades.
That taught Jerry Jones how to interfere.
Yeah,
right. Like he was the typical can't get out of his own way.
Yeah,
owner, but his son's a bit more step backish.
Okay,
right. They brought over, and it blew my mind because they brought over the GM that the Chargers let go, Tom Telesco, and he just buggered this year in the draft for him.
Terrible.
And he's gone already.
Right.
So, you're going to have Brady there, who's going to have a lot of input. You get Ben Johnson, he's going to have a lot of input, like significant input, and who the GM's going to be, not only, what the GM's doing, but who it's going to be.
See, here's where I've got a little bit of issue. You hire the coach, then you hire the GM. So the coach is the owner's guy and not the GM's guy.
Yeah.
And you saw that problem in Toronto, or was it Toronto or Vancouver, where they hired a coach and then got the GM in and eventually had to fire the coach and the GM got their own guy in and the mess continued, right?
Well,
so what's going to happen now, what could happen, depending on who the GM is, you have a coach that has Brady's ear.
Yes.
So the GM's given a hard time, coach calls Tom Brady talks to the GM. That doesn't work well. I don't like, this is what I don't like. Hire the GM, dude, go get yourself a coach you can work with, let's all work together. Don't worry about Mark Davis. I'll handle Mark Davis. You two build the team, right?
And yes and no. So you've got scenarios where that's worked, and you've got scenarios where it hasn't worked. New England, it worked.
Yeah.
Right? Belichick was there. Belichick got the GM fired and picked a GM, and he was like, I'm going to negotiate the contracts. You're going to write the contracts.
Right.
That's how this works.
Yeah.
And the owners stood behind Belichick, right? So the owners got to stand behind one or the other. Right, and if the owner stands behind one or the other, right, then they know what their role is. If the owner says, "No, you two guys figure it out yourself," then you got this going on, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have the owners got to be like, okay, this coach, he's running the team. You do what he needs to the GM, or otherwise, the GM's putting this team together. You just coach the team.
Right.
You can have both, right? But Harbaugh and Ortiz in in
And
LA.
we'll get to that in our next section.
Harbaugh and Ortiz are doing that. They're working together, right? But Harbaugh and the ownership is standing behind Harbaugh and saying, Ortiz, you do what he says, right? He's going to take us there. So it all depends on how they feel. The problem, the good thing about Vegas is Mark Davis is when him and Brady are talking and they say, okay, Ben's going to be our guy and we got to find a guy to write the contracts as the GM,
Yeah.
right? Then they're in agreement with that.
Yeah. So you bring in, I see what you're saying. So one's the football guy, one's the admin guy. And I look at the Montreal Canadiens, which were terrible forever, and I go back to my Habs because they're surging. They brought in Jeff Gordon, who was the hardcore hockey guy as executive vice president of hockey ops, as they like to say. Then he went and got Kent Hughes as his GM. Now, Kent Hughes is a former agent, so he knows the numbers and he knows the contracts, and he can scout because he was involved in hockey for a very long time.
Right.
But one's the hardcore hockey guy in terms of how, what's the coaching or the player development, drafting, that kind of stuff, and the other guy's the admit guy.
Yeah.
And they work really well together because they hired the one guy on the top, and they got the next guy on the bottom, and then they all both agreed to go get Marty St. Louis.
Yeah.
And God love him. I didn't really like Marty St. Louis as a coach because sometimes it works out and sometimes it does when you get ex-players without a lot of coaching experience. But they stuck with him, and all of a sudden, things are starting to unfold. So I see what you're saying. So one is the football guy, draft picks, player development. Let's get the on field, and the other guy's the back office guy who just understands the paperwork. So
and I think
and that's the way you work together.
you got to look at it too. You can't have the instant gratification.
No.
If you're in a rebuild like the Raiders are, right? Because we're talking about the Raiders here.
Yeah.
You're in a rebuild. So Mark Davis is like, we got to start from scratch. I'm bringing in football people. Brady's buying a piece of the team.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Brady's a football guy. Ben Johnson's a football brain, right? Who do we want writing the contracts, running the scouting, that
need
sort
the
of
nerd.
thing, right?
You need the nerd.
You do.
The lawyer,
But
the
you got to get
ex-accountant.
somebody that works with all of them well, because there is no I in team, and the management team of a football team is just as important as the field team. And they've got to be working well together. You can't have these stories of infighting or like when we go with McCarthy, where we have a
Sometimes you got to be able to take a step back, take a step forward.
Yeah. So quickly, the other ones are Jacksonville's looking at Liam Cohen, who's the Buccaneers offensive coordinator.
And this is who we're going with now.
This is Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're looking at Liam Cohen, Buccaneers offensive coordinator. He's done wonders in Tampa. He got a real good lesson when Brady came there, right, on the proper way to run an offense.
Right.
And you see that it's gone on to Baker Mayfield. So that's good. But this one makes me laugh.
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy finding his way to the Bears.
That'd just be.
Oh, and because he spent so long in Green Bay and then go to the Bears. The Bears got a lot of talent there that's available. I feel for Bears fans.
Yeah, I know.
I do.
They talked about Marcus Freeman. There's speculation. I watched Rich Ensign.
Yeah.
That Marcus Freeman, who's in Notre Dame because he brings on the football guys, would be considered for the Bears job. The guy would be out of his mind to leave Notre Dame right now. The thing about Marcus Freeman, about any coaching availability, is he's 36 years old.
Yeah.
So talk to this guy in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Like he's got to win. You go in and win a couple of national championships, and he builds a college team, did brilliantly off the transfer portal, like the way you're supposed to do it. I'm not going to stack my team. I'm going to get pieces that I need
To fill
that I
holes.
know that if fill holes where I'm weak, and I'm going to just superb. But the nice thing about going back to Neon Dion is he's in complete control in Colorado.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about being the head coach of college football. You're in charge.
Yeah.
And the athletic director who's in charge of everything from lacrosse to cornhole in some schools isn't going to tell you how to run your football team. He's just the mid. So yeah, whatever. Anyway, and the other one in the Cowboys, because Rich Ensign had one of the NFL prognosticator guys on, I can't remember his name, Bill Belichick, which I can't see happening, but it's out there, right?
Yeah.
Because rumor has it that he agreed to go to UNC to coach the Tar Heels, but he hasn't put his name on a contract yet.
Yeah.
That's the urban myth going out, and then of course UNC comes out. Yeah, He put his name on the contract. Of course, he signed it, but he doesn't hold up the contract showing his name. I'm like, where's the contract? I don't know. But it's just Belichick's just a bit 72 years old. I don't know. I mean, it's just the whole thing. The guy needs to retire and dump his teenager girlfriend and just act his age. I don't know. It's just gross. It's just gross.
And the other big one is Aaron Glenn. He's the defensive coordinator for the Lions.
Yeah.
And they're talking about him going to New Orleans.
And the offensive coordinator for the Bills was speculated, and quarterback Josh Allen is like, no, this guy's terrible. No, you don't want to work with him. No, he's really bad. No, he has to stay here. No, you don't want this guy. He's, and of course, that's just Josh Allen being a big goofball. Josh Allen's why everybody loves playing with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
A coach, you've got bad decision after bad decision. Let me put it to you this way. The Cleveland Browns got a top pick and need pretty much everything, from a quarterback to just about everything. And I'm guessing right now they're dumb enough to go and get a tailback. Like they're going to go get Ashton Genty or somebody. And when they don't need a tailback, when they have no O-line. That's the kind of dumbass move Cleveland will do. So a head coach, I mean, it's just, unless you've got control, unless you're going to look everybody in the eye and say, look, no, you guys stay over there. I'm running the show. I'm going to get you out of the basement. But it's my plan, and you're going to follow it. I worked for a guy in Saskatoon who was the fix-it guy for radio. So your radio station was losing money. You brought him in. Right. So he came into Saskatoon. I was there during his tenure, and he eventually sort of retired and went to the Okanagan. Anyway, I won't get into the details. But during his tenure with an owner in Saskatoon that was a little crazy, they would go to him and say, "Hey, this isn't working. It still isn't working." He's like, "No, it's going to work. Just it's going to work.
Yeah.
Like, you got to stand up to your boss. If you're going to run something, stand up to your boss.
Yeah.
And if you're going into a Cowboys or a Jets or even a Las Vegas, you got to stand up to your boss and say, look, it's going to take 5 years.
Yeah.
So here's my 5-year plan. Here's our draft picks. Here's who should be technically, statistically, analytically available. Here's how much time it's going to take to develop this guy. And Indianapolis is a good example. They had the second worst pick, because who took the first pick?
Chicago.
Back in the day.
No. They got Indy had the first pick. We had the second.
You had the second?
Yeah, we took Leaf second.
That's where you took Leaf. Yeah. So they took Peyton Manning.
Me there for a second.
And it was 6 years before they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it was, the owners were like, we're sick and tired. Even the Detroit Lions were sick and tired of being a joke.
Oh, Peyton Manning came in. It took him how many years to win the Super Bowl?
6 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 6 years, right? So they kept, even, like I said, Jimmy Johnson took over the Dallas Cowboys. The reason he got Emmitt Smith and all those guys, because they still sucked for all those years when he took over. And it's just, you've got to stand up to your boss. And you've got Jimmy Johnson, who's a massive ego, who's got all these yes men around him. And it's like, no, I don't care who you are. Get the hell out of my face. Don't send your yes men down to talk to me. Come talk to me yourself, and I'll tell you myself.
Yeah.
We're not changing this. We're going to stick to this plan, and just stay up in your booth and let me do it.
Yep.
And if you don't want to do it, kill me, because I got a massive out clause where my grandkids are going to be inheriting some of this cap. And this is what you got to do. And it's hard. I've been in charge once in my life, and there were days like, no, I'm not doing it. It's a dumb idea, and I'm not doing it. Okay.
So we're moving on.
Let's wrap up. Thank you so much for tuning in to our fantastic show where we always go off topic.
Like, subscribe.
Like, subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah.
Next segment coming up.